Hello, this is Black Country Blokes chewing the fat.
Listen, listen.
I've been hearing a lot lately about men don't talk, but in my experience, men do talk, just people aren't listening. So it's going to be me and a group of blokes discussing our struggles and victories through life. Warning, there may be some bad language, so apologies to all the mums, especially my own. Let's get going.
Listen, listen.
Having yeah, it's the Black Country Blokes chewing the fat with me, Kev Dillon, Lee Cadman, Craig Pinches, and Aaron Chew. And tonight we're going to be talking about Child Mental Health Day, is it? And
Week.
Child Mental Health Week and Worldwide Cancer Day. Now, I believe so much mental health starts off when we're children, from what we see, what we do, and how we've reacted to it. So if anyone out there would like to write in a comment either about headache, start off their mental illness journey, or if you want to talk about one of your kids or a loved one. And obviously cancer, the big C, we've all known people who've had cancer, and unfortunately we've lost to cancer. And it's one of those things that, it's been in everyone's life and it doesn't make it any bloody easier. So, Aaron, is there anything you want to say, bro?
Yeah, obviously very, very, very important days. I think we wanted to raise awareness for that. So obviously if anyone's listening, then please do, give us your 2 cents. If there's anything that you want to say, we can share it on the show. We can have a conversation about that. It wasn't something that we were obviously thinking of doing for the whole episode, but again, we can always navigate towards that. But you touched on a good point there in terms of the importance of child mental health, in terms of, I think all four of us at some stage on one episode somewhere along the line, we've mentioned where we kind of felt like, I think my mental health, or should I say ill mental health journey, kicked in around here. I know for myself, I said anxiety really became a thing around the age of 11. Prior to that, I don't think I ever, be stressed, but I don't think stress is the same as anxiety. But I never had any sort of like overwhelming feeling of, gut wrenching or anxiety or not wanting to be there. And that really kicked in at around 11. So I think it's nice that as a nation, I'm not sure if it's just UK bound, that this is being recognized and that we are now trying to think of the future of this country, because I do sometimes feel that the children growing up today have it harder than us. I was the millennial year, and we were getting, it's easy for you guys. You don't know how hard it is, but I was like, we had our own transitions growing up. I always felt like when I was going through school, we were the guinea pig year, so they were trying new things with us, new tests, new everything. So we were always trying, let's see how these guys get on, and then we'll fix it later. And I think nowadays, especially with social media, the kids have it so tough, and becoming an influencer, slight tangent, is almost now like a future job. So a lot of kids now know that they can get into jobs utilizing social media. And that, as we all know, and I think we just spoke just before we come on the show, social media, as good as it is, it also has a bearing on your mental sanity as well. If you don't recognize that it's not real, and when to step away from it, and how to play it. So yeah, I think it's a great initiative. I think definitely want to obviously mention it now. If anyone's got kids and stuff and they're worried about it, by all means write in. But that's all I really want to say on that.
Well, on Tuesday, we had a lady come on from Ripple, and she's doing her part to combat suicide on the internet, because there's some horrendous sites where you can click on and find out how to complete suicide. So Alice from Ripple is doing amazing work. So if you didn't listen to it, go back and find us on podcast or on YouTube. And it's such a wonderful thing she's trying to do for such an almighty cause. How about you, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, like ditto what Aaron said as well. And like you say, becoming an influencer is a potential job role now. I think, Lee, you may have mentioned when we first started out that one of your kids was looking at wanting to be a YouTuber or something.
Yeah,
if I remember correctly.
He does now, and he has his own YouTube channel. And that's come with he's learned that's come with a bit of backlash. There's some people out there who just won't like his videos or downvote his videos. And I'll explain to us, yeah, it's great. It's great when people downvote. What do you mean? Says, well, if people are liking you and disliking you, it means they're listening to you. And I think you sometimes have to change the way he thinks about it. That's what I've tried to do with it.
That's the thing. I mean, even with me, with some more music and that, I was saying to you yesterday that I've been having negative comment, loads of negative comments. The further afield it's reached, the more negative. And to be fair, when I first read the message, I thought, fuck, the dislikes are getting more than the likes. it's the opposite way around now. I'll put that against myself. But like, I was thinking, like they've said this and they've said that, and I was taking it personal. And I'm a 32-year-old guy, and I sort of have more of a grasp on what the world's like and what people can be like in the real world than what a child has. I will, go out on a limb and say, but it is cruel. And for a child doesn't see social media as a tool. Now, us from a business standpoint, we look at it as a tool. And I've just recently deleted every one of my socials apart from LinkedIn and YouTube, because I found I was scrolling, or I was posting something to Facebook that maybe it was just a picture of my boys or a poem, and I thought, why? Like, there's no purpose to it. I'm getting no value from it in my life. It's adding none, but I still say that it's useful as a tool. But a child doesn't see it as a tool. A tool you'd look at using from 9 till 5 and analysing it and seeing how you can use it better. Whereas a child will be on it, they could be on it from the minute they get up to the minute they go to sleep. And who keeps tabs on their mental well-being? Because they may be smiling and laughing, but I know full well if my son got a negative comment on his TikTok, it'd eat him alive. But if he doesn't say anything, I wouldn't know other than his face. So I think kids need to realise social media, it is effectively a tool. And I suppose that's why there's age limits on social media, isn't there? Or there should be.
That's why I think it's such a brilliant job what Lee's done with his kid. And I think that should be another lesson within schools, as you've said, Craig, and you've just said, Lee, saying, look, it's an artificial world. People are allowed to be nasty, especially on Twitter, where you can hide your identity, or on these platforms you can pretend to be someone and actually say, like, because old saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. It's quite the opposite, really, isn't it? What a punch on the nose, you think, oh, thank God that's over. But words, you carry them throughout your life.
Kev, I've said quite often on the show, the only time it matters, good or bad, when someone says something or comments, is if they're your family or your close friends, because no one else knows you. So even a good or bad comment, it's to me, it goes over my head. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd say thank you if it was a good comment, but either of them should go over your head because they don't know you.
But I think when you're a child, especially a teenager, your friends are your best friends forever on. At that time, you'll go like, oh, you and Greg, when you leave school, you won't see him. You'll go, no, Greg, me and Greg will be best man at each. And then it's not until you get older when your circles become smaller and smaller and smaller, is it? And then you know your true friends are. But at that time, every one of your 20, 30 friends, we're best friends. We'll do everything together. It's not until you get older you think, I don't really give Gippers doodah what he thinks.
I think that's right. It's like there's that old saying that those that start a journey with you don't always have to continue it with you. They don't have to see it through. And I think that's part of, like you say, your circle gets smaller. That's you growing, or that's them growing. So there's growth there, whether it's you've been left behind because they've grown, or they've been left behind because you've grown. There's growth, and I think as long as we can acknowledge that is part of the growth process, and not say, oh, they used to be related, now they are, and be all bitter around it. It's just you outgrow the pond that you grew up in, and it's not an arrogant thing to say, and I don't think people should feel shame that their circle gets smaller, because people do, and they feel bitter or they feel angry that they haven't joined you in your successes or your losses, and you haven't been there. And I think it's all part of growth. And I think children bypass now childhood. Children want to be, little girls used to be wanting to be princesses, and little boys wanted to be heroes, and they wanted to be Spider-Man, or they wanted to be Batman. Now the young boys want to be a rapper, or they want to be an influencer. The girl wants to be twerking at whatever age, and this and the other. And I feel that childhoods are a lot different now to what they were when we grew up. We had pogs, we was making swords out of sticks, we had kiss chase, if you want to go that far, and tracker, and kids ain't got that, and they've got an app for childhood. Childhood is one big app now.
I think what you said as well, sometimes you're growing, but you're necessarily growing in different directions, and that's just the course I want to go. It's not like they're out your life, you've just got in a different path that they've gone.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I mean, like a tree grows from its root and it grows up until it starts branching out, and not the branches don't even branch out in a straight direction. They take twists and turns, and each branch will take a twist and turn. So just because you've grown in that direction and they've grown in that direction, your growth is still going to take different turns. Doesn't mean to say you can't be a part of the same tree or you wasn't always part of the same tree. It just means you've got to appreciate the process, and things happen. You know, nothing's perfect, and a tree is a perfect analogy of that, because it's perfect as it is, but it's imperfect in its shape.
And I think this is what we've got to try and get in the schools, really, like getting the kids to talk about stuff more openly, and not just a once a month. Have people in there, ex-scallywags and different. Obviously, they've all got to be CBR'd, you know, DBS to make sure they're all legitimate. But I think we've got to start doing like what we're doing here, and what we hopefully want to carry on doing, and get like we're starting our first support session with Tough Enough to Care this Wednesday, aren't we? Like,
yeah. I'll just bring the details up now. You've mentioned it, Kev. Hopefully, people can see that. So it's going to be every Wednesday, starting from Wednesday the 10th, between 7 and 9. At the moment, we do have restrictions on 15 people attending. And if you would like to, sorry, I'll just remove that banner so you can see the contact details. So you have to pre-book in. If you email the email you can see on the screen there, that's help.toughenoughToCare.help, or text 077 8826 7080 and get yourself booked in.
and that you have to be over 18 years of age for this one because of regulations. We're all going to be masked up, temperature gunned, sitting at the 2 meters gap and everything. You know, I've had the permission of the police and the council. But then in future, with our brothers at Tough Enough to Care, who do their sessions on a Monday, we're going to do ours Wednesday from the Lions Boxing Club. Then in future, who knows, have like a 14 to 17-year-old class, and just getting the teenagers on board. And as we're all saying earlier, we can get people talking about this stuff better, not worrying them about it, saying, oh, anxiety, but going, how do you feel? Well, that's called anxiety. Or how do you feel? Oh, that might just be a bit of nerves because you're frightened of asking that person out, and trying to explain the differences and showing, you know, whatever colour, creed, sexuality, whatever size you are, we all get this, because, you know, mental health, you know, it's all of us. It doesn't just pick, oh, I'm just going to go for him, or I'm just going to go for her. It's out there for all of us, much like cancer.
Kev, Charles asked if it's just for men. Yes, this one is just for men. But again, once the real world opens, we do have plans to do an emergency services version in the daytime, which will include men and women, and include a boxing lesson within it.
Because our dream at the moment is just, well, our overall dream is to get people in talking. Then we're going to get people doing the boxing training. Me and Lee are both coaches, and we're going to get you there learning how to do boxing so we do it properly. And then we'll finish by having a chat. But obviously, we've just got to roll with the punches, so we'll start off with the talking. But, you know, every oak tree comes from an acorn, so we're on the way to doing it. And as Lee says, in the real world, we'll hopefully be doing something in the day for people who have been furloughed, and we've got so many ideas, but one step at a time. But as I said, like mental health, mental ill health is like cancer, because cancer can affect anyone. Or, you know, when you've had to hear about, I mean, children having it, or, you know, triathlon athletes, and they've never smoked, they've never drank, and still got them. Cancers, like mental health, no matter what we do, sometimes it just, if it's going to bite you in the bum, it's going to bite you in the bum. I mean, Craig, I know you've had a lot of experience at home with cancer, and
oh mate, it continues. You know, like all of my family, especially my dad's side. You know, I think every one of my dad's siblings, he was one of 8, and every one of them had cancer. One passed away a few years back through effects of it, I believe, or long-term effects of it. The only auntie that hasn't, she's been diagnosed with Parkinson's, I believe. Oh. So I don't think she's had cancer, but she got the Parkinson's. And now my brother, he's had to have his bowel removed. My 2 sisters have got to have the operation. You know, my dad's going through the mill now with it, and it's just horrible, like, to see it. Especially my dad. You know, my dad's 50. He's just turned 59 actually a couple of days ago. And this happened when he was 54, I think it was 2016. And you think, like, he worked how many jobs, and he'd throw us around and he'd play with the kids and this, that, and the other. And to hear there is, he'll probably kill me for saying it if you ever heard it, but to hear there is now on his knees in the living room after having no sleep and he's in excruciating pain, you know, crying, that's not my dad. That's not. I only ever see my dad cry when he went to the cemetery for a funeral and he said his dad's plaque on the wall. He'd normally walk off because, you know, he'd have a cry. And to hear my mum say there is that's the effects of cancer, and you think, fucking hell, like, what? It's horrible to see what people become through it, and you can't help but pity them. And like I say, my siblings are going through it. You know, now they're awaiting operations. My brother's just going over a reversal of his operation, and it's horrible, mate. Like, cancer, to the big C word, I think it's become so. Everyone you know now has either had it, or they know someone that's had it, or know someone that's died of it. When we were kids, it was quite an unheard of thing. You know, it's still a very, very prominent thing in society, but you could go like X amount of people throughout your family of not being in contact with it. Now every other person seems to have it or have, you know, some version of it.
I might have the stats wrong, but I think when we were kids, it was like 1 in 4 people would get it, roughly. Now I think it's 1 in 2. But as I said on Tuesday's episode, there was a statistic the other day about mental health. Out of 5 people in this country, 4 people are showing signs of either wellness or mental health problems. That is bonkers, isn't it? So cancer, mental health's on par with cancer and all this. It's bonkers, isn't it? But they're still seeing miles apart. A physical illness and a mental illness. And like, as we say, like, as soon as you can get the cancer picked up, more chance you've got of beating it. And I think that's the same with mental health. You know, if we can get seeing people at early doors, then hopefully we can battle it. It's like with cancer. If you put it off, and then it's spread all over you. So I think we've got to use the same metaphors. You know, get to see someone early doors. What do you think, Aaron?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the most difficult part probably is, though, in terms of, at least with cancer, for example, if you go to the hospital, they can probably diagnose it because they can see a mutation or however they do diagnose it. Obviously, with mental health, it's slightly more difficult because you don't know if somebody's just having a phase through their life or if they're stressed or, you know, they've gone through something. It's quite difficult to actually pinpoint it. It's not like there's any sort of mechanism by where we can look at someone and say, okay, if this carries on in 2 months, you're going to have mental health, for example, or actually, as of today, you are experiencing ill mental health. Because as we all know, all 4 of us and people listening, is it's peaks and troughs sometimes it's, you know, it's continuous. So that's the most difficult bit. I think that's why all we can do is make people aware, as much awareness that we can spread, so that if somebody is maybe showing them signs, i.e. they're going through those phases that is prone to somebody then potentially end up with depression or whatever it may be, then we can nip that in the bud as soon as possible. A bit like cancer, the earlier you get it, obviously the easier it is to kind of at least control it or understand it and then do whatever you can with it. So yeah, it's scary. I mean, as you were just talking, you and Craig there, it says here that in the UK, every 2 minutes somebody's diagnosed with cancer. And I wouldn't be surprised if in like 10, 15 years time, we were talking about our children earlier, if those figures, if we don't make a change globally and nationally, that our children may be experiencing every 2 minutes something to do with mental health, because we know mental health doesn't fall on just a single spectrum. There's so many different avenues of it, and it is scary. And you know, just to kind of segue a little bit further back to the conversation, we were talking about what it was like for us as kids. There's probably one person in the year who didn't like us, you know, the class bully, for example, who probably didn't like anyone, and you'd always know about that, and that's it. But other than that, everyone was nice. There was your best friends. There was an outer circle, or there was just normal people. Nowadays, because we have access to pretty much the whole world via our phone, that one bully could be like 1,000. It could be 10,000. And like Lee was mentioning, you know, the YouTube channel for his little one, and Craig, you were mentioning that as your videos get more views, what actually happens is it comes out of the circle of, from your close friends, it goes to an outer circle, because your close friends are never really going to say anything, whatever they feel. They'll probably like it, they might not like it. But then the moment it starts heading out, it allows the public to then hide behind, you know, the views and everything. And that's where they all kind of kick in. And then this bullying mentality kicks in. So yes, sorry for going around a little bit, but I just think it's something that we should at least tell our children, and I hope they're doing this. They're probably doing this at schools anyway, or at least we can try and do that to make them aware that actually it's just growth. So like Lee says, in terms of reframing it, that somebody's, somebody hasn't liked it and somebody has liked it. The bigger you grow, the more negative stuff you're going to get, because that's just the way of the world. The more things we try and eat, the more things we're not going to like, because our taste buds, and that's what we've got to kind of try and teach the younger generation, I suppose. Because I wish I was told that growing up.
Yeah.
What's the statistics, Aaron? If you got your Google there, for how many people complete suicide a day? Is it? I know it was 18, or I know Took Enough to Care mentioned it the other day, Lee.
Let me have a look, mate.
Was it 1 in 8 minutes or something?
Every 2 minutes, one UK male commits suicide.
Wow.
I think.
Complete
suicide.
Yeah.
Sorry. We had a great comment actually off Claire Stokes about the kids growing up. So it's a lot different now to when we grew up. Parents nowadays are scared to let their children out and be kids anymore. I think that's certainly right. Like, it scares me to death. My eldest is 12 next week, and it scares me to death of just going to the shop, even with friends. It's. I think it's a total different world now, or I don't know whether it's different or we hear more about the world now.
That's the one, because all the wrong uns and all them people are still there, but now that we've got our phones and I think it's like we're aware of every real thing that's happening in our village and in the world and in the universe, and it just makes us worried, doesn't it? Sometimes, like my Jasmine's still got her baby monitor. She's 5. You know what I mean? And I know other people who have never had one, but it's our thing where we've had it there all the time, and then you don't want to take it away. And it's the same with your kids. You don't want them to go too far in case, and you don't want to do this in case. And it's before I had Jasmine, I said I wouldn't be one of them parents. Kids got to go and make the mistakes, come back with grazed knees and broken hearts. But your child's the most important thing in your world, isn't it? And the fear of it getting hurt or taken from you is overpowering.
Yeah, I think I was watching the other day for some reason. I was watching the 1960s Britain, and it's literally just a song playing over little video clips and photos. And I looked and I showed my missus and I said, how you had kids there lighting fires and obviously the poverty-stricken areas of the 50s or 60s or whatever it was, and there was lighting fires and the adults were just standing talking. They wasn't trying to wrap them in a bubble. It was almost as if the kids knew that it was dangerous. And now kids don't have that sense of danger, I don't believe. They're so trusting.
But the other thing, though, back in those days, your community, your street, looked after your kid. You'd have all the kids out in your road, but old Ethel, old Jeff, and everyone was there watching them. And if you did do something, they could give you a clap on the ear. But if you were doing something wrong, and go, I'm going to tell your dad, and go, I'm sorry, Derek. And all the kids were together as one, and the safety in numbers, and all the parents were looking out for each other.
Was it you, Kev, that said, or have I read a quote or heard a quote somewhere? It was something like, "It takes a village to raise a kid."
Yeah, and that's what that's an old saying, isn't it? But that how true that is. Your village, your street, your cul-de-sac would raise that kid, and you'd have respect for them. You'd go and check on your elders. I remember we had an old lady in my mum's street, Mrs. Ludlow, and whenever the ice cream man was coming around, you knew she'd want one, so you'd knock on the door and you'd go and get the money and get her ice cream, and if she needed any chores doing in the garden, you'd do it, because everyone was looking out. But now, apart from all this, where we've actually kind of got to know our neighbours, because we're out there clapping every Thursday, you could live somewhere 20 years and not know the person 2 doors down. Because in the olden days, you'd go around, if you moved in, here's some cakes, my name's Kevin Dillon, what's your name? If you need anything, I'm next door. Nowadays, you walk past and go, all right, if you're lucky.
It was almost as if you was on first name terms with the Bobbies as well. I mean, one of the pictures on that was a police officer with his bell hat on and that, walking some kids across the street, and they was admiring him and respectful. Now, if you was to get that now, you'd be amazed, or you'd be thinking, what's the kid done, or why is he, before it was innocent, or the kids didn't crossing the street, the copper would do it. And I think that's a lot of due to population. you know, we're overly populated now in not only in the world or not only in the country, but in our little areas, you know, and it proves that them starting to build on flipping Greenbelt land and the Halfpenny Airport, the Halfpenny Green Airport, they want to build homes on. And that shows you how overly populated our little areas have become. And that's why you can't trust, because you used to know your neighbours, as you say. I grew up on the Wallers, and everybody on there, I pretty much knew who lived where, or I was familiar with them. Now I go up the Wallers, mate, and I ain't got a flipping clue who's up there. And I suppose that's just part of life, you know. Things evolve and things move on. But like I say, the kids, I don't think they've got a sense of the dangers anymore. They're too trusting.
Just to add to what you're saying there, I think it's quite interesting, because I think back in the day, because we never had access to a mobile phone or Google, for example, you almost had to get to know your neighbors and your community, because otherwise you're going to have a very, very lonely life. You know, as humans, we're designed to interact and have relationships. Whereas I think nowadays, because of the way the algorithm works and the way that we all just literally get fixated on our phones, it's so easy to look into other people's lives. We're obsessed with looking at celebrities' lives, at influencers' lives, and following, you know, like the Big Brother shows and everything. So instantly what you end up doing, because you get addicted, because they're designed that way by the cleverest people in the world, that you end up just engaging in people's lives that have no real relevance to yourself, and actually forgetting the community around you. So actually what ends up happening is you end up having that level of exposure rather than the nice community around you, the nice people, your neighbors and stuff. And you see more stuff. So you see more, you know, like you see brutality towards police officers and stuff. You see people disrespecting people a lot more. Whereas back in the day, you never used to see that. You used to be so afraid to, you know, say something that wrong to your neighbors. I would never say no to my elderly neighbors, because I knew I'd get in trouble from my parents when I get back, out of respect. Now you go on here and you see so much bad stuff. You think, well, I can get away with that. So there's that level of exposure, which I think plays a part.
Sorry,
as well.
lads, can I cut in? We have a guest coming on just to ask us a question.
Yeah, sure.
Hopefully this will work. So this is Gemma. How you doing, Gemma?
I've been you, Gemma.
Hello. Hi.
Hello.
Thank you very much.
I've never done this before.
Nora,
I've never
don't
done
worry.
Okay, hello.
How you doing?
I've
You
been
all
you.
right?
Laura.
Sorry, you cut
Hi.
up a bit there, Gemma.
No,
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I was just working out where my camera was.
Right.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Gem. What's your question, darling?
Well, I was going to ask. Sometimes, let me just speak first, and then the question will just come. I was going to say that I've been in hospital years ago now, over 2 years ago, with mental health, whatever that means. Right, and I was there for 5 to 6 weeks, and sometimes I panic about telling people that I went there. But on the other hand, once I've told everybody that I meet, anyone, I feel automatically better, because then they're like, oh. And so the next time I see them, if I look upset or down or happy or whatever, I know that they can remember me saying that. And then they change the way they speak to me. Sometimes for the worst, sometimes for the best, but they change. And that's why it's good to tell people. If you haven't been to hospital with a mental health problem, like I hadn't before that, I found it really hard, because I would start crying and then I couldn't even speak to say, well, I've got a mental health problem. And that's the issue. So sometimes if you know, like if someone's told you, or a professional has said you're having mental health issues, you can lie. You can say, well, I've actually been in, somewhere for my mental health. You can lie through that part, because that's your prerogative. And then the other person or the other people will take you more seriously. Because like somebody said on the show, on the program thing, whatever you call it, the other day, if you've got a broken leg, people can see it. You have to make your mental illness visible, right? But you don't have to tell everybody everything. I'm not going to tell you what's wrong with me because I'm better, because I'm in something called remission. It's linked with the cancer thing, is that you can get better, but mine is called in remission for a mental health issue. right? I've never heard of that before, but that's apparently. Sorry, my phone's going. And that ringtone, right, is the ringtone I had in hospital, right? Now that is the ringtone I had. I did not, right? That's what I wanted to say, and that's what I'm asking. I'm asking, do you find that if you say, well, I have actually dealt with it, and I have been somewhere, that
But
people
this is what
change
we
the way they speak back to you?
But this is why we started this, Jem, because all the years I was carrying stuff around in my heart, and I'd tell the odd person this, and I'd tell the odd person that, and then more I was telling them, they'd go, you, Kev? I go, yeah, and they go, don't tell anyone, but me too. And more that conversation keep going, and me too, and yes, and me. And I thought, well, let's take this somewhere big, and let's knock down the stigma of it, because, as you say, it's maybe you'll never cure it in some ways. Maybe it'll always be there. Maybe we just deal with it better. But it's not being ashamed of it. It's about owning it instead of hiding it.
I think if I can butt in there, I love what you say about you have to make your mental health issues physical. I love that, because people only see what they see, if that makes sense. And if it's not there, they don't really look for it, or they're not sure how to look for it. So I love the fact that you say you need to make it physical. It's kind of an out there term that I've never heard anyone put into that perspective. I know you said before, Kev, it's like having a broken leg, but you saying that, maybe that's a hashtag, make mental health physical.
Absolutely. I might as well jump in as well. I just want to say thank you, obviously, for sharing your story, a little bit about it. But when I first mentioned that I had anxiety, again, I didn't know I had anxiety. I just thought I was a weird person. And I used to react quite differently, especially around like big groups and stuff, even with friends, even with people that I love to see. It was almost like just before meeting them, I'd always cancel plans, like literally 5 minutes before. And then it was only when I started the first podcast, Find Your Voice, and started openly saying why I have anxiety and how I feel and how it makes me want to run away and stuff, that now people are a lot more comforting towards myself. So if I ever do that, they'll actually message me and say, well, is it excuse real, or are you struggling, or do you want to come a little bit later and stuff? And people are a lot more receptive towards it. And again, I suppose using the analogy you used, I kind of made it more physical, that people recognize certain habits of my life as, oh, this is maybe Aaron's anxiety playing up. So yeah, I encourage everyone. And like Kev says, this is what we're trying to do. It's almost like a me too. Like there's nothing wrong with you, because I think we often think that it's exclusive to ourselves, but there's so many other people probably feeling the same way as us.
Gemma, the thing I've probably found the most enlightening for me is once I started opening up, actually my family will now talk about it. And I mean, even my dad will talk to me more than he ever has about it. And there's only good to come out of that. My sister, everyone now, everyone now is more open to talking about it. And that's always a win for me. So I'd always say, go out there and talk.
I think it's like looking through a window, Yeah, sorry, you carry on.
Carry on, Jim.
I think she's just agreeing with us there.
Yeah. It's because I'm a teacher. I always, because I'm a teacher, so I always
force of habit. Yeah, I was just going to say it's like it's kind of like looking through a window. If you're on the outside looking into an house and you see people in there and it's a red hot sunny day, but the heating's cranked up full in the house. From the outside, you don't know the heating's cranked up full and that they need a window open, or they need help or air conditioning. So I think if you crack the window and say, look, the heating's up full and we're dying in here, it's I think talking about it allows people to see you for what it is.
But Gemma, thank you ever so much for coming on. And if you ever want to do this again sometime, please do the same. To take care of yourself, darling.
Thank you. Brilliant. I've really enjoyed being part of it. Thank you.
Always.
Thank you very much.
Take care, Gem.
Bye.
It worked, Lee.
Yeah.
If anyone else would like to come on and ask us a question, all you have to do is email us at this, and we'll get you on to ask a question. But thank you very much, Jem. That's the first one. That's the dummy run done.
Oh, that ain't very nice, couldn't have done me.
Well, I didn't mean that.
No, I'm only joking, Jim. That was wonderful. Thank you for being part. This is what we want to do. We want to get you, as we all say, the fifth, the fourth, whatever person in the room with us. And if you don't feel comfortable to come on, as Gemma had the courage to do, then it takes courage. Then please keep your comments and questions coming in, because as I say, when you talk about mental health, it's an endless topic, and I think more brave people that can come on and talk about it. I mean, on Tuesday, well, this whole month, this whole year, we've had some great guests on, haven't we, guys?
Yeah,
We have, mate. We have. We're only a month in, Kev. So say the last 18 months we've had great guests on.
Well, the 18 months, but this month seemed like a year so far, in my opinion. But yeah, we've got some big things coming up soon, guys. As I say, we're Tough Enough to Care coming on and doing them things. So please get in touch, because they are a wicked organisation as well.
Brilliant. Sorry, Kev. Lee, are you seeing the comments? I think they're coming from YouTube.
Yes, mate. But there's basically he's trying to explain a dream to us, and until he's finished explaining the dream, I don't think I have to bring it up on the screen.
Okay. No, that's fine. I was just seeing it come through. I'm trying to figure out if it's a legitimate post as well.
Yeah. I think we ignore it a bit longer.
Okay, that's fine. Until we can make some sense of it.
There are a couple of messages in there saying hello. Paul Bogey messaged in, evening guys, hope you're all well. Charlene Plant, there isn't enough targeted MH support for children. It really needs to change.
Yeah.
You know, completely agree with that. I mean, my child's school, a primary school, they have what's called, I think it's called a quiet room. It's where the kids can go and gather the thoughts, or they could meet someone in there. So if they're in there and the teacher sees them, they can go in there and have a word with them. I believe it's called the quiet room. I don't know the exact workings to it. And I think for that primary school to even take their initiative to do that, shows that they're at least in touch with children get stressed and children get pressured, especially up to year 6, you know, where they're just learning the school and things like that, learning the schooling system. For them to be able to go in there and read a book or to speak with someone confidentially, I think that's at least a great step in taking that initiative.
Well, can you imagine how it's going to be when they go back? And some kids are going to basically have had off. We've already almost had like 12 months off, and then say it is March, April, May, June, July, September. Like some kids who absolutely love school, it's really been hard for them. But if you'd have been like a kid like myself who hated school, and then you've had this longer period off it, and then peeling the kids off the games and the internet and the phones and make them sit down again for 6 hours a day, when they're like, when my Jasmine went from she did 6 months in reception, then she went to year 1, and she was expected to go from reception to year 1, and then it'll probably be from year 1 to year 2. That's all right, it's her age. But when you're going from from year 6 to year 8, you know, it's going to be a lot for these kids to take in, not just for education, but social graces, and obviously the anxiety, agoraphobia, germophobia, the bullying, and I think there's going to be so many different aspects to this virus within kids, you know, and that's why I think they should start getting things in place now to spot it with our children.
Definitely.
Because it's going to be a minefield going back there. And I can't envy the teachers, because the teachers are there to teach. But we need other members of staff in there, teaching assistants or whatever, to be spotting underlying problems.
Okay, I think also just educating the kids to spot it. You know, ultimately, you've got one kid and probably one teaching assistant. I'm not sure how it works. There might be more, but you know, that's only the 2 people. If you can get the kids spotting what their friends are doing, it's going to be a lot easier.
And learning how to say something, and you know, and why words hurt, and why, you know, like I've always taught Jasmine, it's like if you see a child, like before all this, if you see a child crying, go and hold their hand and see if they're all right, or help them up, and just little things like that. But I think we need to get some kind of structure. If it's not in the homes, you can only teach something if you know it yourself. If you don't know it, how are you ever going to teach it? So if we could have platforms or organisations doing this within schools, I think we'll have a much better world. Let's say, get that bit of community spirit going back. So if you haven't got it in the street, but you've got it in your classroom, or you've got it in your gym, or you've got it in your class or your dojo, and spreading the love and being aware when someone's upset.
I think, Kev, I think that relies on, obviously we want schooling systems and this and other to have things in place like that. But I think ultimately, usually when a voice is spoken or a number of voices spoken, it falls on the right ears. And I think parents' meetings and things like that, or even if we got together as parents in the different schools and say, right, this is an initiative I feel could help our kids if the school can implement it, and then we put it forward to them, because they may not be parents, they may not be, I know them teachers and that, but they may not be in touch with that more personal emotional state of a child. So as parents, if 30 of us got together and say, or at the annual meetings raised it, we believe that we could do better with children's mental health, at least then if we've said it and it's not happened, we can ask why. But if we haven't asked it, we can't keep expecting systems and that to think about it. Like when I spoke to Marcus about the NHS mental health and that, and I said to him, Marcus, what can I do for you? Anything I can do, let me know. I said, because ultimately, it's for us. I said, you guys will help facilitate it on a bigger scale. I said, but it's for us. He said, and this is what we're trying to see, is get involved because we facilitate something that is for you. And I think with the schooling systems, if we can take that initiative as parents to put forth, a proposal to the schools, what we think is happening and how we feel it can be addressed, and see if they can facilitate it rather than have them, come up with all the strategies on their own.
I think I mentioned this on the show the other day. Has anyone watched the Chasers? And they're doing that thing, planes, brains, and automobiles, and they're going around. And I think it's the second show. The Beast, he got the highest IQ test out of them all. But then when they did an empathy test, Sean, he got the highest one, and the Beast got the lowest one. But I think we're so concerned on our IQ scores of how we can remember things, and we're not focusing enough on the empathy scores.
Yeah.
How does, when Craig's upset, make me feel, and how can I see that Aaron's anxious, and why is Lee angry? So maybe if we can just do even just a small portion, an hour a week or something like that, just to get people aware of how it is. But if you bring that in year 9, the kids will laugh it out. So we've got to be doing that from the very start of primary school.
And
that's a great point.
Sorry, Aaron, you carry on, mate.
I was just going to say, I think that's a great point. I just quickly brought up a trusted friend, Google. And so emotional intelligence, basically, I think is what you're referring to, Kev, which is the ability to understand, use, and manage your own emotions in a positive way. And it can help relieve stress, communicate effectively, and empathize with others. And I think we touched on it briefly earlier. I think I said the word guinea pig, that we can only teach what we know, right? So we should almost see ourselves as, okay, guinea pigs now who are trying to understand this mental health thing world, that we're going through now. We're all trying to understand it. We're all trying to express it, raise awareness for it. We need to now take those lessons and obviously feed it back. So even simple things like talking, listening, nutrition, being kind to others, like you just demonstrated there, Kev, and helplines and stuff. I think that instantly, those 5 things would just set our kids up for such an easier ride to at least know where to look, because we've all found this out in the last 18 months. It's only through research and figuring out why my brain is the way it is that I realize actually probably the food that I'm eating on a daily basis isn't helping me, for example, or the way I speak to myself. And, like you said, if we can all work together, and it's brilliant that we have parents on here as well, because the more eyes and ears we get and the more thoughts we get, because again, we're just 4 people here that we can get in terms of what can help benefit our kids. I think it can massively help.
I think Karen has just brought up a brilliant thing here. She says, I think in a digital world, children having empathy is harder.
Possibly, yeah.
I'd say definitely. I think it's hard to empathize with a computer screen or a phone, or and you're not seeing that person's real emotion. I
think as well, if I can just jump in early, I think that to point that out, because I think that's a wicked point. I think that to me, if you're watching a film and you see a car crash, there's a certain part of that screen in between you and that movie, that car crash, is the screen to let you know or lead you believe it's not real. But if you're in the street and you see a car crash, you're going to have some kind of emotion or emotional response towards it. And I think that's a wicked point to bring up, because it's real when there's a screen in front of you, but it is, it's just a different degree of, it's just a different level of real.
Or if you're being hurtful with your words, you're saying all these horrible trolling terms, you're not seeing that person on the other side sobbing or getting frustrated or kicking the door because it's just words to you. If you have to say that, even something in a video, everyone gets braver when they're on the telephone. Everyone gets braver when they're typing a text. But it takes courage to say it to someone. And then it's not only courage, but like when you say it to someone and you see them start crying, or you see the dentist effect. But that's what we get at school, isn't it? That's how you can see when you're pushing buttons. But I think when you're just doing it on screen, as Lady said, we're losing our human interaction skills. But yeah, wicked point. Thank you ever so much.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think with kids as well, going back to like you say, how does it affect, if I'm down, how does it affect you? And I think there could be things in place that say, right, if we know there's problems with Craig and he's got 2 close friends or 3 close friends, it might pull them aside and see how, if they've changed or they've noticed a change and if it's affecting them. There's loads of strategies that can work, and I think it's born from empathy and it's born from initiative, as opposed to sitting back thinking, oh, the kids are going through all this crap and there's nothing in place for it. Well, if there's nothing in place for it, surely it's our responsibility as people and, I'll say humanitarians or humans, just to try and make people's lives better. So don't always expect someone, if you're freezing in the cold and wet outside, are you going to expect to wait for someone to come and put a jacket over your shoulders? Or are you going to do it yourself? You're going to probably do it yourself, aren't you? So I think that's what we need to understand as people.
We've got a comment. Sorry, mate. We've got a comment from Steve. So Steve says, guys, do you think that we sometimes, I think that's meant to be, see children struggling to cope and just put it down to a phase? He heard that a lot growing up, just a phase.
It can be, can't it, mate? Unfortunately, they say, oh, he's just going through one of them phases. But once again, I mean, as we've all been teenagers, and you can be a moody teenager because your hormones are going through the roof. You're trying to find out stuff and you don't want to ask questions because you don't want to be teased. And so I think maybe we just have to be a bit more frank with our children and just say, look here, whatever you got to talk about, go and talk to mommy and daddy, or go and talk to your brother, or go and talk to your coach. And it might be a phase, or it might be a larger issue. Hopefully it is just a phase, because we've all had that, haven't we? But maybe it's not. So as we say about suicide, ask the question, even though the answer might be uncomfortable, it has to be out there.
Even as adults and parents, mate, like we never stop learning. There's no one specific blueprint to parenting, is that, or even dealing with people, not even dealing with kids, but dealing with people. Don't think because you've dealt with that person for 20 years, it's going to be dealt with the same for the next 20 years, because people change, we grow, we go in different directions, we have different thought processes. And I think as a parent, I think the only thing to do, and this is what I try and do with my kids, even though they're young, is understand them and spot and notice it, and maybe not approach it direct and say, look, you're doing this or you're doing that and it's not what you normally do, but keep an eye on it and adapt your interaction with them to suit. So if I see my son going through, let's say, the goth period, if he's going through the goth period and I feel he's lonely, from time to time, dress up in goth clothes with him and let him know that if that's what he wants to do, that it's okay. He doesn't have to subject himself to isolation from us or from his friends just because they think it's weird. Here you go. If it's weird, Dad'll be weird with you. And I think it doesn't always need a head-on interaction. It just needs empathy, and you just need to keep an eye on it and adapt to whatever the child's going through, in my opinion.
But that's it. There's no manual to being a parent, is that? And all we do, I mean, every parent who's listening to this, we spend most of our things trying our best, feeling guilty. No matter what we do, we seem to feel guilty about something. But as you say, I think empathy all across the board, from our work colleagues to our family, to our loved ones, even to our enemies. Let's try and, empathise. Aaron, so I know you're a big empathobe.
I am. I was just actually just going to point out Karen's point there as well. I think Lee just had it on the screen, which is just again the importance of talking and how vital it is about not making assumptions. But obviously, I don't have children, but I wanted to just bring something up a little bit on a tangent as somebody who doesn't have children. About probably 6 months ago, there was quite a lot of support towards getting children off social media, for example, and that you should reduce their time, for example. But then me playing devil's advocate is kind of, well, the world's moving towards that. So actually, what you're trying to do is move them away from a world that they're going to grow up in without knowing how to kind of navigate that. So I know there's a lot of people, maybe somebody watching this who's totally against the social media and being on there. I think we have to embrace it. And then the most difficult part of it is, how do you navigate that well enough in order to keep them safe within there? So that's kind of like my thing as hopefully a future, parent one day, that I need to basically let my child live how the rest of the world is living, rather than try and protect them, but then protect them in that means, if that makes sense.
I think, Aaron, I struggle with this myself, and I actually agree exactly what you're saying. What we need to do is let them use social media, but educate them on how to use it correctly. And instead of going, actually, you just can't go on it.
Yeah.
Because anything, I know as a kid, anything someone said you can't do, I wanted to do it. So I think you're right. I think it still has to be moderated, because all my two eldest kids will sit there all day, not necessarily social media, but in front of a screen, not interacting with anyone. And we literally wouldn't see them. We're getting an Alexa announcement asking for some dinner. They don't even come downstairs to ask for dinner. So I think definitely it needs to be moderated, but it needs to be educated on how to use it and what it's for.
I think the scary thing with social media is when we were kids and we were down the park and you'd see a guy our age now, you'd run away. You'd think there's something wrong about this. Whereas nowadays with social media, anyone can be anyone. But I think, as you're right, education with your kids, like from a young age, my Jasmine, and I've said, you don't let strangers see your private parts and everything, because that nowadays when people are taking pictures of their body at a young age or teenage age or whatever age, and they forget, once it's out there, it's out there. Once that photo has been taken, it's not like a hard copy. Once it's out there, it's out there. And I thought this was really weird and difficult having to say to a young child, I'd rather start young so it's ingrained in a head all the way through adulthood that, that's your private area and don't take pictures of it. And that's once again to the social media, isn't it? If you don't know them, why are you arranging to meet with them? And whatever you do, don't take pictures of yourself, because, that's your private area and you don't know this person.
I think we as parents and people lead, you lead from the front. And I think a hypocritical stance on anything, it's just counterintuitive. So if, like you say, we say, kids, don't want you on social media, it's not safe, and then you're on social media, it sort of invalidates the lesson to be learned. And I think it's the same, like you say, with moderation. If you turn around and say, look, you can go on it, it's going to be it's going to be clocked, and your time is going to be restricted to however we feel is suitable, an hour a night or whatever. I think at the moment, we kids, parents, adults, we've got free will. So if you wake up at 2 a.m, you reach for your phone, you can search Facebook. It's not like going to any kind of shop or any cinema that if you want to go there at 2 o'clock in the morning, it's going to be closed. It's 24/7 open. It's just we need to know when's best to and how's best to access it. Like you say, Aaron, it's not in just closing the door to that world, because you're not teaching them anything. Then you got to teach them, how to delegate the time better and how to moderate it better and safe practice. So I think we can all, like, this is not me judging anyone or not me saying I'm perfect. I mean, my kid plays Fortnite. He's 8, and I know the age rating for that is 18, and it drives me potty. But as a parent, you're always torn between doing what you know is best for that child and not having them bullied at school because they're being left out of a trend or of a craze. And I think that's where moderation comes in. But, it's one of them. I can do a lot better to learn how to moderate it a lot better, and I know I can. And I think we've just got to ever learn. We've just got to be stuck in our ways with, pardon my language, this is what it is and that's what it is. You know, we've got to do better to learn.
But at this time, it's very hard to moderate, isn't it? Because we're just locked in our houses. So we're all on our phones a little bit more. We're all watching a bit more television because, you know, we're stuck in the house. So,
but on that, Kev, Steve's brought up, he says social media is fine as long as it's moderated. Digital addiction is a real thing that needs to be looked at, looked out for in our modern world.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, you imagine how much worse that is getting at this point with everyone being stuck at home. Not only that, you're learning from a computer now. You know, all the online works off your computer. It'd be interesting, actually, if we can get a digital addiction expert on.
Well, do you remember we had Joe Plum on the other week, and he was saying his journey, and he said he was completely addicted to it. He went from someone who was bullied at school, then he did a campaign. That's a great episode, by the way, if anyone wants to listen to it, Joe Plum. And he got like over 100,000 friends, and he was constantly doing this. And he said it was a form of, it's like being addicted to drugs or cigarettes. He was having to do it all the time. And I think once we come out of, I mean, kids and grown-ups and everyone has been more on their phones, back in the day, I was watching the telly, wasn't it? Now it's, you're watching your phone, you're watching your tablet, while the TV is still on in the background. But I think once we come out of whatever lockdown we'll end up out of, seeing how addicted just everyone is, and then having kids having to just stare at pen and paper back at school, you know, whether they do have withdrawal symptoms.
That's the thing. Like it's an addiction. Like it's that I watched a documentary once, and Facebook and the likes, you know, all social medias, they employed Vegas casino experts at them who creates the fruit machines and that for those, because they wanted to know how they program them to appeal to our addictive nature, and like the social media sites would employ them so as they can find out how. It's like if you go on Facebook and you put a picture on and you get 10 likes, 20 likes, or 2 likes if you're me, and then you get none for 3 days and then you get another 2. That's because Facebook every now and then will flash it in front of these people to get you back on. Because what you got to understand is their business is your time. You know, the longer they have your time and attention, the more wealth they gather and the more their platform succeeds. And us as parents and us as people, because mate, YouTube Shorts is the one at the minute because it's set up like TikTok. You scroll. Once you get on one, it is addictive. And me as a 32-year-old guy that's got some kind of self-restraint, I find it hard to come off there sometimes myself. And you call a kid who is fascinated by the smallest things, you can expect it to grab their attention for longer.
Absolutely. I was just going to say, attention is basically the new currency, and that's where all these big, you know, organizations, Facebook, Google, everything, that's where they run it off. So, you know, going back to what we were saying earlier, it's almost like recognizing that our children and even ourselves, I mean, sometimes my phone notifies me. I've been on it for over 10 hours, like my screen display, mainly during lockdown, which is like such a dangerous thing when you think about it, that we have to almost think, okay, if they are going to be on it, then is there a way we can maybe move that attention somewhere to a little bit more that's going to be beneficial? Because I don't know. Again, I'm not a parent, so maybe I'm speaking slightly, you know, with less experience. But I just feel it's so easy just to be on it all the time. Because, like you said, Lee, your work's on it now. Like even my work, I can't work without this laptop here. I'm pretty much sitting in this seat for like 14 hours a day. So it's almost like if it is moderation, maybe implementing something else that gives you something different, because otherwise it's just dopamine hit after dopamine hit, because that's what they run on basically, isn't it? And that's why we just keep scrolling, and that's why the likes, every like is a dopamine hit. And as Steve mentioned there, that's why we get addicted. We get addicted because of the feeling that something gives us, be that alcohol, drugs, or whatever. And social media is definitely one of those things.
And where you say, Kev, if I can just say, where you say grab them from the kids and from the young age, this is what we're allowing as parents, the social media and the internet companies and that to do. We're allowing them to program them from a young age. That dopamine, it comes from your phone and it comes from this alert and that alert. So it's important for us to, you know, keep that programming under restraints.
Almost use what Lee said. Almost use what Lee said at the beginning in terms of even the good stuff, not let that affect you too much as well. Because otherwise you're gonna validate your whole existence based on likes. Like I do it, like I'll release a YouTube video. If it's like 500 views, the next one will get 80. I feel like shit for the next few days. I'm like, or is there any point? But it could just be a completely different topic that nobody cares about. But I'm valuing myself. I'm like, I spent more time on this. I did this, and I'm a grown man. I know about all of this. We're speaking about it now. So we have to almost let our kids know that just because you get more likes doesn't mean anything in terms of you as a person. Do you know what I mean?
Value.
Like that's almost separate, if that makes sense.
Well, guys, I've really enjoyed tonight having a chat. Unless there's anything else anyone wants to say, because that's
Can
that's
I?
been our,
Sorry, Kev. Can I just bring up the support group once again for anyone who's just tuning in? So this is our support group that we're doing with Tough Enough to Care. Because we are in lockdown, it's restricted to 15 people at the moment. It's going to be on Wednesday, starting this Wednesday coming, Wednesday the 10th, between 7 and 9. If you'd like to come along, please email or text us on help.toughenoughToCare.help or text on 077 8826 7060. Again, it's restricted to 15 places and they're filling fast. So please come along. So that's a men's support group.
and that'll be at the Lion Boxing Club in Briley Hill. All right then. But as I'm advertising my the guest for on Tuesday, you guys have a think about a quote. So on Tuesday at normal time, we've got a man called Ryan coming on, talking about many different things. I won't give anything away, but yeah, it's going to be talking about all different subjects. It's a great story. Sad story, but a great story about how people can overcome. So, guys, anyone got any quotes?
Craig.
I've actually found one. I found one on Twitter actually. It might help actually. It's very similar to comparison is a thief of all joy, which is probably one of my favorite quotes. But I think maybe even for our children as well, you can obviously reword it, but it's basically a spin-off of that, which is comparison is a form of violence we do to ourselves. And I think especially with social media, that's where a lot of our self-doubt and, the way we treat ourselves and speak to ourselves is because we're comparing ourselves to somebody's almost perfect life that they choose to show. So yeah, we'll go with that if that's okay, guys.
Well,
by me, mate.
Until we talk next time, take care of yourselves and each other. It's all right.
See you guys.
Listen.
And that's a wrap for another show. But if there are any comments or messages that you would like us to read out for our next podcast, please be in touch. There are also lots of different organisations at the bottom of this page, and hopefully they can help you or someone you care about. Please share this to spread the word. Until we talk next time, ta-ra a bit.
Listen.